In the early 19th century, in a remote part of Adams, Tennessee, a haunting unfolded that would become one of the most infamous and debated stories in American folklore. Known as the Bell Witch Haunting, this series of supernatural events left a permanent mark on the history of paranormal phenomena. The Bell family, particularly John Bell and his daughter Betsy Bell, became the central figures in a chilling account of ghostly activity that spanned from 1817 to 1821. The haunting allegedly involved the manifestation of a malevolent spirit that tormented the family with disturbing sounds, physical assaults, and cryptic messages, leading to a death that many believed was caused by this entity. The Bell Witch Haunting has long been a subject of interest for paranormal enthusiasts, scholars, and skeptics alike, due to its dramatic escalation and the mystery surrounding the identity and motives of the spirit. Though the Bell Witch case took place more than 2 centuries ago, its impact continues to be felt today. Many believe that it was the result of a supernatural force, a vengeful spirit, or a witch's curse, while others suggest that it was an elaborate hoax or psychological phenomenon. Regardless of the theories, the case continues to provoke intrigue and fear, becoming a cornerstone of American ghost stories and spawning books, movies, and documentaries. This video will explore the historical context of the Bell family, the series of supernatural events they experienced, and the witness testimonies that contributed to the lasting legend of the Bell Witch. It will also critically analyze the theories surrounding the haunting, providing both supernatural and psychological explanations. By the end of this video, we aim to understand the cultural and historical significance of the Bell Witch and why its story endures as one of the most terrifying and enigmatic paranormal occurrences in history. The story of the Bell Witch begins with the Bell family, who moved to Adams, Tennessee in 1804. John Bell, a prosperous farmer and father of several children, was a well-respected member of the local community. He had recently relocated his family from North Carolina to start anew in the fertile lands of Tennessee, seeking prosperity through farming. The Bell family consisted of John, his wife Lucy Bell, and their children, including Betsy, the family's youngest daughter, and several others. Tennessee in the early 1800s was a frontier state, marked by isolated farm communities, the presence of indigenous peoples, and the rising influence of European American settlers. The settlers held strong religious beliefs, and the local population was deeply rooted in traditional practices, including folk magic and superstition. The spiritual climate was one of deep religious fervor, where supernatural beliefs coexisted with established Christianity. This created fertile ground for both spiritual and supernatural events to be interpreted through the lens of religion and the unknown. The Bell family, prior to the haunting, had lived a relatively peaceful and prosperous life. They were well known in the local community, and John Bell was particularly admired for his role in public affairs. However, their comfortable existence would soon be disrupted in 1817, when the first strange events began to occur. The first signs of the Bell Witch haunting were subtle and seemingly innocuous. In the fall of 1817, John Bell began to notice strange, unexplained sounds coming from his home. Knocking, scratching, and rapping noises were heard throughout the house, particularly in the walls and around the doors. At first, the family dismissed the sounds as the result of mice or some other natural explanation. However, as the disturbances continued and grew louder, their unease grew. One evening, John Bell and his family were sitting around the fireplace when they first heard the sounds clearly. They became more persistent and louder, shaking the walls of the house. To their horror, the disturbances escalated from knocking sounds to guttural voices that seemed to come from nowhere. The voice, which later claimed to be that of a witch or an evil spirit, spoke directly to the family, asking for attention and responding to questions posed by John Bell and others. As the weeks passed, the strange phenomena became more frightening. Objects began to move on their own, including chairs, books, and furniture. Doors would open and close by themselves. The family could not rationalize these occurrences, and soon the Bell household became the talk of the town. Neighbors and witnesses began visiting the Bell home to see the phenomenon for themselves. What they witnessed was not only disorienting, but frightening. The disturbing sounds, strange movements, and mysterious voice continued, leading to the belief that something far more sinister was at play. One of the most chilling aspects of the Bell Witch haunting was the voice that claimed responsibility for the supernatural occurrences. The voice, which reportedly belonged to the entity, was described as being able to speak multiple languages, often mocking and threatening the Bell family. It was able to answer questions, give directions, and converse with the family in a way that seemed both purposeful and malevolent. The voice often taunted the family, particularly John Bell and his daughter Betsy Bell. At times it would call out their names, even in the dead of night, and speak in a tone that was both terrifying and familiar. It seemed to know intimate details about the family, which contributed to the idea that this was no ordinary haunting. The Bell Witch spoke of the past, family secrets, and events that had not been made public, creating a sense of foreboding. The voice would also engage in more cryptic speech. It would frequently express its disdain for John Bell and his family, issuing threats and warnings. Some versions of the story suggest that the spirit referred to itself as a witch who had been wronged in life and was now seeking revenge. The accusations and threats grew more intense, and soon people from surrounding areas came to witness these phenomena for themselves. One of the most famous aspects of the Bell Witch's voice was its claim to be responsible for the death of John Bell. According to local legend, the spirit boasted of its ability to kill John Bell and claimed that it would do so within the year. It also allegedly stated that John Bell had been cursed long before the haunting began and that his death was inevitable. As the haunting progressed, the Bell family began to experience physical assaults from the invisible entity. John Bell and his daughter Betsy Bell were the most affected by the physical manifestations of the spirit. John Bell was reportedly slapped, pinched, and even poisoned by the entity. His condition worsened as the haunting escalated, and he eventually died under mysterious circumstances, which many believed was caused by the supernatural force tormenting the family. Betsy Bell, however, experienced the most severe and disturbing assaults. It was said that the entity physically attacked her, causing her to suffer bruises, scratches, and violent shaking. The entity allegedly pulled her hair, slapped her face, and even caused her to experience spasms and convulsions. Witnesses claim that Betsy's experiences were so severe that she was often unable to function normally in daily life. Many believe that Betsy was the primary target of the spirit's wrath, and some even claim that the entity was trying to possess her. This led to widespread speculation about the true nature of the Bell Witch. Was the entity truly supernatural, or was it a manifestation of psychological distress? The idea of possession, whether literal or metaphorical, became a central part of the narrative surrounding the Bell Witch haunting. The death of John Bell is one of the most significant aspects of the Bell Witch haunting, as it marked the culmination of the entity's alleged torment. According to reports, John Bell's health deteriorated rapidly in 1820, and he suffered from unexplained symptoms that included severe numbness, sight loss, and a weakening of his physical state. Family members reportedly witnessed him experiencing violent shaking, much like the other attacks the family had encountered. The Bell Witch is said to have claimed responsibility for John Bell's deteriorating condition, stating that it was the cause of his illness. The voice reportedly taunted the family, saying that John Bell would die soon and that it would bring about his death. Despite medical treatments and interventions, John Bell passed away in December 1820, leading many to believe that the Bell Witch had fulfilled its ominous prophecy. Some versions of the story state that the Bell Witch left a bottle of poison by John Bell's bedside, which was said to be the cause of his death. However, the mystery surrounding his death remains unsolved to this day, and many argue that the cause was supernatural. The Bell Witch haunting ended after John Bell's death, but its legacy lived on. The Bell family moved away from the area, and the mysterious entity reportedly ceased its activity. However, the legend of the Bell Witch continued to haunt the town of Adams, Tennessee, and became a part of local folklore. Over time, the story grew in myth and intrigue, drawing in more witnesses and visitors who wanted to experience the haunting for themselves. The Bell Witch Cave became a popular tourist destination, and people continued to visit the area to witness the eerie occurrences for themselves. The haunting also inspired countless books, articles, and documentaries, all trying to explain the events surrounding the Bell family. The Bell Witch haunting has inspired various theories and interpretations, And much of the debate centers around whether the events were genuinely supernatural or could be explained by more earthly factors. Scholars, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts have offered a range of explanations, some of which attempt to reconcile the story with known scientific or psychological phenomena. This section will explore the supernatural theories, psychological explanations, and the skeptical views that surround the Bell Witch haunting, shedding light on the ongoing mystery and intrigue. The most widely accepted and popular explanation for the Bell Witch haunting is that it was a genuine supernatural event. According to this theory, the Bell family was indeed haunted by a malevolent spirit, a witch, or a demonic entity. Some proponents of this theory point to the paranormal phenomena such as the knocking sounds, physical assaults, objects moving on their own, and the possessing voice as evidence of an otherworldly presence. One of the most compelling aspects of the supernatural explanation is the entity's apparent ability to communicate and prophesy, which fits within traditional understandings of a witch's powers. In many cultures, witches are believed to have the ability to curse and bring misfortune upon others, which aligns with the Bell Witch's actions, such as cursing John Bell and foretelling his death. The entity's claims to have been a wrong witch seeking vengeance is another common feature in folk tales and supernatural lore, making it a recognizable archetype of supernatural revenge. Many believe that the Bell Witch was a spirit of a deceased person who had unfinished business, or even a demonic entity that attached itself to the Bell family. Some interpretations of the story suggest that the entity was pursuing Betsy Bell with the aim of possessing her, as evidenced by the violent physical attacks she endured. The malicious nature of the entity and its apparent ability to predict events is a major factor in supporting the supernatural theory. The cultural climate of the time also played a role in shaping the belief in supernatural explanations. Early 19th century Tennessee was steeped in religious fervor and folk magic. The idea of witchcraft and demonic forces was ingrained in the beliefs of many people at the time. This belief in the supernatural made it easier for people to accept the notion that a malevolent force could be at work in the Bell household. While the supernatural theory has dominated much of the narrative surrounding the Bell Witch haunting, psychological explanations have also been proposed. According to these views, the events were not the result of a ghost or demon, but rather the manifestation of psychological distress and family dynamics. One of the most widely discussed psychological explanations is mass hysteria or collective delusion. In the context of the Bell Witch haunting, the theory suggests that the family members, particularly John Bell and Betsy Bell, were suffering from stress, anxiety, or psychosomatic illnesses that led to the reported phenomena. Psychosomatic illnesses are physical symptoms that are caused by psychological factors, such as stress or trauma. It's possible that the Bell family's extreme fear and anxiety about the strange events in their home led to the perception of supernatural occurrences. Betsy Bell's physical attacks, including bruises, scratches, and shaking, might be explained by the psychological phenomenon of conversion disorder, where emotional distress manifests as physical symptoms. It is possible that Betsy was experiencing psychological trauma, perhaps from the fear of the haunting, which could have led her body to react in unusual and violent ways. Another psychological theory focuses on the role of family dynamics. Some researchers argue that the Bell family, particularly John Bell, might have been dealing with internal family conflicts or financial stress that contributed to the alleged haunting. John Bell's decline in health, for instance, could have been caused by stress-induced illnesses or a psychological breakdown. In this case, the events described as supernatural could have been a projection of the family's internal turmoil. Betsy Bell's experiences could also be seen in the context of adolescent psychological distress, where the intense pressures of growing up and family life might have manifested in ways that were interpreted as supernatural. Teenagers, especially in times of social and emotional strain, often experience intense psychosomatic symptoms that can be misinterpreted as something supernatural. There are many who question the validity of the Bell Witch haunting and offer a skeptical viewpoint on the events. Some argue that the entire story was a hoax, driven by the Bell family's desire for attention or perhaps even financial gain. One of the most popular skeptical theories is that the haunting was fabricated or exaggerated by the Bell family in order to create a mystique and attract visitors. In rural communities in the 19th century, such sensational stories were not uncommon, and some believe that the Bell family exaggerated or invented the paranormal events to draw attention to their farm or to explain their misfortune. It is also possible that the Bell family, or members of the local community, were involved in pranks or deliberate deceptions to create a legend. According to some skeptics, the initial strange sounds could have been caused by natural occurrences, such as animals in the walls or unusual atmospheric conditions, and the family may have embellished the story as it gained attention. Another skeptical argument revolves around the lack of direct evidence. Despite numerous witnesses who claimed to have seen strange occurrences, there were no physical artifacts or proof that could conclusively support the idea of a supernatural force. The fact that the hauntings seem to focus on psychological manipulation, for example, taunting, threatening, rather than providing tangible evidence of the supernatural, leads some skeptics to believe that the events were the result of mental strain or delusion rather than a ghostly presence. The theories surrounding the Bell Witch haunting are varied and often contradictory. While supernatural explanations maintain the traditional view of a vengeful spirit or witch, other interpretations, such as psychological distress or hoaxes, provide alternative perspectives. The ambiguity and complexity of the case ensure that it will remain a subject of debate for years to come. The Bell Witch continues to captivate the imagination of those interested in the paranormal, but it also serves as a fascinating case study for understanding how cultural beliefs, family dynamics, and psychological factors can intertwine to create a legend that endures long after the events have ended. The Bell Witch haunting has cast a long shadow over American folklore, making it one of the most significant and enduring paranormal stories in the United States. Over 2 centuries since the haunting first began, the story continues to be retold in books, documentaries, films, and television series. The legacy of the Bell Witch not only cemented its place in the annals of supernatural history, but also contributed to the cultural development of ghost stories and haunted legends, influencing how we understand and experience paranormal phenomena today. The Bell Witch haunting became more widely known when it was popularized by the writings of Martin Van Buren Ingram, a local lawyer and writer who documented the events in the 19th century. Ingram published a book titled An Authenticated History of the Bell Witch in 1894, which brought the Bell Witch story to a broader audience. His retelling of the haunting, filled with vivid descriptions of the events and dramatic recountings, played a significant role in cementing the Bell Witch as one of the most infamous ghost stories in American history. The haunting was soon intertwined with the American frontier spirit, a time of superstition, folklore, and frontier hardships. As Tennessee became a central part of the southern United States culture, the Bell Witch story became a symbol of the eerie and mysterious, often associated with rural communities, isolated farmhouses, and the presence of witchcraft. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Bell Witch legend had morphed from a local tale into a national phenomenon, with various versions of the haunting circulating in newspapers and across the country. One of the most lasting cultural impacts of the Bell Witch legend was the development of the haunted house trope that became central to American ghost stories. The Bell Witch haunting was not only an early example of a home being haunted by a spirit, but also became a template for the terrifying stories of haunted homes, poltergeists, and the often tragic fate of those involved in supernatural occurrences. Additionally, the Bell Witch Cave, located in Adams, Tennessee, where the Bell family is said to have experienced many of their supernatural encounters, became a popular tourist destination. Over time, the cave and surrounding area became a focal point for those seeking to experience the eerie connection to the Bell Witch legend firsthand. The cave is often marketed as an essential destination for paranormal enthusiasts, and many visitors report experiencing strange occurrences, such as unexplained sounds, cold spots, and feelings of unease. The Bell Witch continues to influence modern paranormal culture in various ways. It is often cited as one of the first cases of a demonic haunting or a curse involving a family, and it remains one of the most well-documented cases of such phenomena. The Bell Witch's ability to communicate with the family through voices, knockings, and prophecies predates many modern paranormal occurrences that rely on similar methods of communication, such as Ouija boards, electronic voice phenomena, EVP, and other spirit communication methods. The haunting also contributed to the concept of poltergeist activity, the manifestation of physical disturbances, moving objects, scratching, etc., caused by a non-human force, poltergeist hauntings became a significant aspect of the paranormal field, particularly in the 20th century, with notable cases such as the Enfield poltergeist and the Amityville horror echoing similar elements to the Bell Witch case. In modern paranormal investigations, the Bell Witch is often referenced as a milestone case that represents a point of origin for many of the supernatural experiences that are commonly discussed today. Investigators and enthusiasts of ghost hunting often compare more recent hauntings to the Bell Witch case, examining whether the nature of disturbances, such as objects being moved, voices being heard, or physical manifestations of spirits, mirrors the haunting that occurred in Adams, Tennessee. The Bell Witch legend has had a profound influence on the horror genre, particularly in American literature and film. Its combination of psychological horror, ghostly activity, and the idea of a malevolent spirit seeking revenge is a formula that has inspired numerous books, films, and documentaries. The 1950s film The Bell Witch Haunting dramatized the Bell Witch's story for a larger audience, depicting the chilling experiences of the Bell family in a cinematic format. In popular literature, the Bell Witch case has been referenced and retold in numerous books and novels. One of the most notable works is Brandon Massey's The Bell Witch: The Full Story, which weaves together historical accounts with fictional storytelling to create a suspenseful narrative that captures the eerie atmosphere of the original events. The story has also been explored in urban legends and modern ghost stories, continuing to evolve as it is told and retold across generations. In the realm of television, shows like Ghost Adventures, Paranormal Lockdown, and Destination Truth have made visits to the Bell Witch Cave and surrounding areas, further solidifying its role as one of the most well-known supernatural locations in America. The Bell Witch's influence can also be seen in the paranormal reality TV shows that became popular in the early 21st century, many of which explore locations with similar haunting histories. The mystique surrounding the Bell Witch has also inspired horror-themed merchandise, including books, documentaries, haunted tours, and even Bell Witch-themed events. This ongoing popularity helps keep the legend alive, making it a point of continuing fascination for audiences interested in the paranormal. The Bell Witch haunting remains one of the most debated and mysterious events in the history of American paranormal folklore. Its legacy endures because of the intriguing combination of supernatural elements, the psychological impact on the Bell family, and the cultural significance it holds in shaping our modern understanding of ghostly phenomena. The haunting raised important questions about the nature of belief in the supernatural, the human need to understand the unknown, and the role that folklore and myths play in shaping both individual and collective memory. One of the key takeaways from the Bell Witch story is the power of fear and belief. Whether the events were the result of a real haunting or a product of psychological stress, the belief in the supernatural held a deep influence over the Bell family and their community. The psychosomatic effects witnessed in the Bell family, particularly in Betsy Bell's experiences, suggest that fear and belief can manifest in ways that make ordinary occurrences seem extraordinary. The mind's ability to influence the body and perception is a theme that plays a central role in many ghost stories and paranormal investigations. The Bell Witch haunting also highlights the complexity of human psychology when confronted with the unknown. It shows how fear of the supernatural can shape the perception of events, causing individuals and communities to interpret unexplained phenomena through the lens of cultural beliefs and superstitions. The legend of the Bell Witch speaks to humanity's need for meaning and explanation in the face of the inexplicable. When faced with unexplained occurrences, humans often turn to the supernatural to make sense of their fears and anxieties. The Bell Witch's place in American folklore illustrates the enduring nature of folklore and myth. Over 200 years after the events occurred, the Bell Witch story continues to captivate audiences. The power of storytelling and the human need for myths and legends are essential components of how cultures preserve history and social memory. Whether it is a tale of a wronged witch seeking revenge, a haunting ghost, or a psychological phenomenon, the Bell Witch haunting taps into deep-rooted cultural fears and ideas about death, justice, and the afterlife. Moreover, the fact that the legend has endured for so long speaks to the universal appeal of ghost stories and the human desire to understand and confront the mysteries of existence. Cultural transmission, through generations of storytelling, ensures that the Bell Witch will continue to haunt the imaginations of people long into the future. Ultimately, the Bell Witch haunting remains an open question, an enigma that has defied explanation for over 2 centuries. Whether supernatural or psychological, the story raises questions about the nature of reality, belief, and the human experience with the unexplainable. The Bell Witch serves as a reminder that some mysteries may never be fully understood, and the stories we tell about them become an important part of our collective imagination. In conclusion, the Bell Witch haunting is more than just a ghost story. It is a reflection of our fascination with the unknown, our need to explain the inexplicable, and our deep-seated belief in forces beyond our understanding. It is a story that continues to capture the minds of those interested in paranormal phenomena, psychology, and the human condition, ensuring that the legend of the Bell Witch will endure for generations to come.